called, by the way, the name of the song is called Hanagasa Ondo. So this is going to be, well, that was the start of the show. But now we'll get into some of the lecture. Because the thing is this, I mean, when you pull out an instrument like this that nobody has any idea what it is, the audience, in my own opinion at least, the audience will enjoy the performance so much more if they know a little something about it. Don't you agree? Yes. Instead of just saying, it's a bamboo flute, here it is, you know. So this instrument is one of the most fascinating instruments in the whole world of instruments. First off, the first thing about this instrument, you would never guess this by looking at it. It's one of the hardest and most difficult instruments to play in the world. Not many people could play this flute well, and you know, it's insanely hard. But it looks deceptively primitive, right? I mean, it's just 4 holes on the front and 1 hole on the back for your thumb, and it's a tube of bamboo, and that's all there is to it. But we have a cliche saying, looks can be deceiving, right? So with a shakuhachi, looks are deceiving. It's cut at the root. These are the roots of the bamboo tree. You know, they would have been sticking out in the ground when it was alive as a tree. And what's unusual about my shakuhachi, almost every single shakuhachi ever made since, like, you know, whatever year, the year 1200 and something AD to now, shakuhachis always have 3 bands of the roots at the bottom. However, my flute has 5 bands. I have 2 more bands than everybody else. I don't know why, that's just how the maker chose to make this flute. It had nothing to do with me. Now, this flute in my hands, it's about 120 or so years old, a real genuine antique. And the reason why I have a 120-year-old flute, just like everything else on the planet Earth, they can't make them like they used to, right? You know, my grandmother lived downstairs from me until she died. She died when I was only 21, sadly, because I loved her dearly. I hung out with her every day, and I loved her so much. But she had a Frigidaire refrigerator, and it was probably, I think it was probably from the 1950s. It ran and worked all the way to the year like 2008 or 2009 or something. I mean, that's astounding. I mean, my wife and I have gone through 2 refrigerators in 7 years or something like that, and we're very angry about it. Like we bought 1 refrigerator. I forget how long it lasted. Maybe that lasted 7 years and it died. Then another refrigerator, we replaced it. It died after 4 years. And you shouldn't have a refrigerator die after 4 years. We were aggravated beyond belief. Anyway, you can't live without a refrigerator, so you have no choice but to buy another one, right? So anyway, it's called, I said this before, right? The name of it is shakuhachi, and that actually refers to its length. In the ancient Tang dynasty in China, like the year 900 or so, or in 1000, they had a unit of measure called a shaku, and it was divided into 10 sun, just like the foot is 12 inches. And this instrument, it's 1.8 shaku. It's almost 2 full shaku, 2 points shy of it. So it's 1 shaku and then 0.8 of another shaku. And the word hachi in Japanese means the number 8. So shaku for the unit of measure, hachi for 8. So like it's a shaku, 0.8. So that's kind of the name refers to the length of the instrument. And there are other lengths. Like at home, I have a 2.3 length shakuhachi. It's about that long. And it has the most phenomenal sound. It's also well over 100 years old. But it's insanely difficult to play because the holes are farther apart. And I can't really get my fingers on them in a good way. So I I love that flute to death, but I never play it because it's just too hard to play. I'm trying to sell it, and so far, no luck. Shakuhachis don't jump off the shelves when you try to sell them, you know? Anyway, this instrument, at one time in Japan, when it first, well, here's what. In the Edo period of Japan, the Edo period was from 1600 to 1868. Then it was the Meiji period after that, in 1868. This flute was played by these mendicant Buddhist monks. They were called komuso. Komuso means, in English, priest of emptiness and nothingness. And these guys were a section of Rinzai Buddhism. There's different kinds of Buddhism. There's Theravada Buddhism, there's Rinzai Buddhism. So they were a part of Rinzai Buddhism. And they formed this sect of Rinzai Buddhism, and they called it the Fuke Shu. Shu means sect. So the Fuke sect are the Fuke Shu. And they were followers of Fuke. Now, who was Fuke? Well, Fuke was a Chinese guy who lived in the Tang Dynasty, around 900 or so. I don't know the exact year, I can't quite remember the details. But he was a Chinese guy, but Fuke is his Japanese name. He has a Chinese name, needless to say, because he's Chinese, but I don't remember what his actual Chinese name is, because I've always just known him as Fuke. So Fuke was an enigmatic, wacky, kind of kooky Zen master. And he would ring this little bell and chant this enigmatic saying, like, if I'm attacked from the west, I'll strike like a flail. If I'm attacked from the north, I'll strike like a whirlwind. And this saying, it made no sense to anyone but him. And a lot of people in town thought he was kind of a nut job. But this one young man named Chohaku, his Japanese name again, he wanted to become his deshi, his disciple, and learn Zen from him. But for whatever reason, Fuke had no interest in teaching this young man, and he sent him away. He says, go away, kid, you bother me, all right? So Chohaku goes and makes himself a bamboo flute, and he was trying to imitate the sound of Fuke's ringing bell with the bamboo flute. To me, that sounds peculiar, because a bamboo flute does not sound anything like a bell. Am I right? Right? Come on, they're completely different sounds. But this is the legend. This is how the story tells it. I'm just relaying what I've read. And then so, supposedly, and you know, none of this is 100% guaranteed to be a fact, because it's, you know how things get lost in history. 100, 1,000 years ago, you know, things get lost and changed and whatever. But they say that in the year maybe it was 1225, I think, if I remember right, that a Japanese Buddhist monk, his name was Kakushin, he made a study trip to China to learn from the Chinese Zen masters about Zen Buddhism. And while he was in China, he discovered this tradition that had started with Chohaku in the year 900 and something of meditating while playing a bamboo flute. So, in Japan, they do something called zazen. They sit on their knees, right? And they meditate. They clear their mind, they try to think of nothing, and just follow your breath. Well, in China, instead of sitting and meditating, they were meditating as they breathed in and breathed out into their flute. And so Kakushin, the Japanese Buddhist monk, thought this was the bee's knees. He thought it was wonderful. He gets one of these flutes and he brings it back to China. He brings it back to Japan. And then at some point down the line, they started making the shakuhachis out of madake bamboo. Madake is a species of bamboo. And madake bamboo is the fastest growing thing on the planet. Scientists, or botanists, I guess, measured a madake bamboo tree. It grew 2.5 feet in 24 hours. Is that not astounding? Imagine if your child grew that much overnight, right? You'd have to buy them all new clothes. But anyway, so they began to make the flute out of madake bamboo, and they would cut it at the root, and that's when the modern day shakuhachi took its form. But this Fuke sect, they were in the Edo period, sometime after 1600 they formed, and one of the members of this Fuke sect, and his name was Kurosawa Kinko. He lived from 1710 to 1771, and what he did was, there were many temples throughout Japan that practiced shakuhachi as their meditation practice, and each temple had its own piece, and they would play that piece again and again, over and over. What Kinko did was revolutionary. He traveled on foot, all over Japan, and it took him, I think, 3 or 3.5 years. he went to all of the temples that played shakuhachi, and he had them teach him their piece. So he learned each of the pieces. He learned a total of 33 different pieces, and then after he died, his son took over, and then his son's son took over, Kinko III. Yeah, so Kinko II took over when he died, Kinko III took over, but then there was no Kinko IV, so a man named Hamatsu Fuyu took over. But anyway, blah, 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 blah. So after his death, after Kinko died in 1771, in the years subsequent to that, the people who were running his lineage added 3 more pieces. So now in the Kinko school, and the Kinko school, by the way, is my school that I am trained in. I am highly classically trained on this instrument in the Kinko school. And so there are now 36 pieces in total. And the pieces are long. Many of them are 30 minutes, some are 20 minutes. One piece is 45 minutes, and another piece, if you play it very slowly and meditatively, it'll last an hour and 20 minutes. One piece of music. That's incredible, right? Then there are 2 pieces that are like 3 or 3.5 minutes. They're very short, and that's unusual because most of the Kinko pieces, other than the 2 pieces that are like 3.5 minutes, the shortest piece after that is something around 10 minutes. There's several pieces that are like 10 minutes and a few that are 15, but the lengths vary from piece to piece. So so I don't do too much talking at one time, because that's the problem with this show. When I do these cultural shows, I need to strike a balance between the performing and the lecturing. And for me, I find it hard to do that, because I have so much knowledge, and I love to share it with people, so I get carried away with the lecturing. So what I'd like to do is this. I'd like to play a piece, but I have to ask you all if this will be okay, because here's what. There are different schools of shakuhachi playing. I told you my school is the Kinko school. There's also the Tozan school, which is a newer school, and then there's the Meian school. And actually, you could call it the Meian or Myoan. The names are interchangeable. Meian, Myoan, same exact thing, same school of shakuhachi. And the Meian style is older than the Kinko style. It goes back over 1,000 years in Japan, which is quite old. And I am trained in that too, because my teacher was lucky enough, when he lived in Japan for 4 years in the early 70s, he studied Meian with the greatest Meian player in Japan. But the bummer was, I think there are 33 pieces in the Meian school. My teacher only learned 13 of them, and his teacher died, so he never learned the last 20. So therefore, I don't know the last 20, because my teacher doesn't know them. He couldn't teach them to me, because he didn't know them. But I did learn all 13 Meian pieces that my teacher knew. So anyway, and this is one of them. And this piece here, it's actually my very, very favorite piece. I play it every day of my life. Every single day. I'm a fanatic for it. But here's the thing I have to ask you. When I play it, all right, briefly explain something. There are 2 ways to play the shakuhachi. The way you play it one way when you're alone in your room and playing for no one but you, and you play it a little differently when you're performing it for an audience. And by the way, playing Zen Buddhist meditation music for a live audience never happened ever in the history of Japan until after World War II. Prior to World War II, you would never be able to see a concert of Zen Buddhist music on the shakuhachi because nobody did it. They were monks and meditating, and they didn't want to perform. It just wasn't their deal. But now, people do Buddhist meditation music in concert all over the world all the time. You know, I've done it tons of times in my life. So here's the point. When I play this piece at home by myself meditatively, it's like about 9 minutes. Playing it a little faster for the audience, maybe it's 7 minutes. Are you guys okay with a 7-minute piece? Hey, look, I'll bet you most of you probably love the song by the Beatles, Hey Jude, right? Everybody likes that song. That song's over 7 minutes long, you know, so, all right, so, but I probably will, you know, I think every shakuhachi player just, they automatically or inherently just play it a little faster when there's an audience, you know, I guess. All right, so here we go. Oh, wait, one last thing. Before I play, I do have to tell you one thing, and this is critical. I have to tell you this. Some of the notes in the Japanese music are out of tune sounding to Western ears. They're different notes that are not found on that piano. They cannot be played on the piano because they don't exist. They're totally different notes. So, because my cousin Daphne, well, she's my cousin's wife, but I'm so close to her. We're amazingly close. She's just like a cousin. And she's never had a vocal lesson in her life, but she's an incredible singer. She has a gorgeous voice. She sings perfectly on tune. She's a great singer. She heard me playing it at our family beach trip to North Carolina one year, and I'm playing my flute, and she goes, "Hey, you're playing out of tune!" And I was impressed because she's not a musician in any way, but her ear was good enough to hear the out-of-tune notes. That was impressive. I don't know if any of you will hear the out-of-tune notes. Maybe you will, maybe you don't. I don't know how good anybody's musical ear is. But anyway, so some of the notes are funny. That's it. So here we go. Oh, the piece is called Oshu Sashi, and Sashi is the music that monks would play, and it imparts the idea of dedication and offering. Sorry about that. Okay, here we go. unbelievable breath control to be able to play this instrument. I think that is probably blatantly obvious. Yeah, I have like the most phenomenal set of lungs. Needless to say, I never smoked ever in my life. Cigarettes are one of the dumbest things people have ever thought of, in my opinion. The funny thing is, you know, my wife and my mother are incredibly close. Like, even though, you know, it's her daughter-in-law, but my mother looks at my wife as her real daughter, you know. I was an only child, so I never had a sister, so, like, yeah, it's her daughter. So, we live in northern Westchester now, but my mother lives in North Haven, Connecticut, right next to New Haven. And my wife says, hey, let's spend a week with your mom. She lives alone. She's probably lonely. Let's go hang out. So I had to come from Connecticut and my mother's to get here, which took me over 3 hours. If I was coming from Westchester at my house, it would only have been like 2 hours. So it was a lot farther from her. But the funny thing is, so we're staying for like a week with my mom. My mother hates this flute. She cannot stand the sound of it. Lucky for me, my wife likes it. And that's what matters, because she's the person I live with. But the funny thing is, I play the steel drum, you know, the steel drum from the Caribbean islands, right? My wife hates that. No idea why. I mean, we've been together 20 years and 4 months, and she's never told me why. She just hates the sound of it. So to keep her happy and to not annoy her, I never play it in the house. All right, so we'll move on to a different instrument now that you've heard and seen the shakuhachi. Okay. All right, so I got to put these picks on my fingers in order to play this instrument. All right, so this instrument here, this is actually, I have a vast instrument collection. In fact, when my wife and I bought our house, we bought the house on impulse. We looked in one town, we looked at a total of 3 houses, we chose one and bought it. 18 years later, we're still in the same house, so the impulse buy turned out to be okay. But here's the funny thing. I think it was the first house we looked at. It was utterly perfect for us. The price was exactly what we could afford. It was all, it was an old house from the 40s, but it was all modernized with nice modern appliances and marble countertops. It had the most gorgeous stone fireplace. The house was perfect. We loved it to death. But my wife says to me, and by the way, she wasn't my wife at the time. When we bought our house, we were only a boyfriend and a girlfriend. But we knew within 3 months of meeting, from the day we met, 3 months after that, we knew we'd end up married. And we were right, because we got married. Anyway, my wife says to me, she goes, well, my girlfriend at the time, she says to me, she goes, we can't buy this house. It doesn't have a room to store your instrument collection. I have 12 of these. And then this guy who made these guitars, he made another version of this guitar for a different person, and they put their own label. I have 7 of those. I have a whole load of regular guitars, because this is a Hawaiian guitar. Regular guitars. I have a 21-stringed harp that's about 6 feet long from China, that I bought in China, called a gucheng. I have instruments from all over the world. We have a half-finished basement in our house now, the house that we actually live in, and the whole room is just filled with my instrument collection. I have so many of them. So yeah, we couldn't buy the house we wanted because of my instruments. Oh well. All right, so this instrument here, it's a Hawaiian steel guitar. It's also called a lap steel. Now, why is it called a lap steel? Well, see, here's what, most everybody in America, pretty much everybody at some point in their life, they've heard the term steel guitar. You read it in a book, you hear it on a TV show or a movie or whatever, steel guitar, right? Every single person, without exception, always thinks it means a guitar that is made out of steel. Isn't that what you would think? That's what everybody thinks. Well, this is a steel guitar and it's made of wood, so that is incorrect. It's not called a steel guitar because of what it's made of. That has nothing to do with it. It's called a lap steel because you play it on your lap and you play it with this. This is called a steel. It's also called a slide or a slide bar, but you know, steel players, we just usually say, this is my steel. So you hold the steel bar, you press it on the strings to make your notes. And that's the only way you could play this guitar, because there are not frets. There are wooden frets, but they're inlaid. They're not functional. So you can't push the string like this. If I'm pushing it down like a regular guitar, here's the sound you get. Muted, nothing. It's nothing. You can't do it without the steel bar. Now, of my vast instrument collection, this is the most rare and the most collectible instrument that I own, and it's one of, after my shakuhachi flutes, I have another high-end shakuhachi flute at home that I paid an insane amount of money for too. and this one. But after my two expensive shakuhachis, this is my next most costly instrument. It was made in about 1921, 22, and possibly 23. There's no way to know the exact year, but it was made sometime between 21 and 23. So it's over 100 years old. And it was made by a German immigrant. Now here's the funniest, weirdest thing. So this is a Hawaiian guitar. The lap steel that I just explained to you, it's called the steel guitar, or it's called lap steel. It was invented in the 1890s by a Hawaiian man named Joseph Kepupu. The legend or the story tells us that Joseph was carrying his guitar and walking on the railroad tracks, and whereupon he came upon a loose railroad spike. The railroad spike was just on the ground. It wasn't hammered into one of those wooden railroad ties. He picks up the railroad spike, slides it on his guitar, and thought, whoa, that sounds really neat. He locks himself in a room for 3 years and perfects the technique of playing a guitar flat on your lap with a steel implement. He unveiled it to the world. In the 1890s, the world got to see and hear a new instrument it had never seen and heard before, all from Hawaii. But here's the funniest thing. The best sounding Hawaiian guitars to ever be made in the history of Hawaiian guitars were made by a German immigrant living in Los Angeles. Not made by a Hawaiian native living in Hawaii. Go figure. That doesn't make sense. It's very backwards and weird, right? But it's true. There's not that many people in the world. I mean, it's a small number, but there are a bunch of people out there who are fanatics for these Weissenborns, and I am one of them. I am obsessed with these. I love them to death. Now, this Weissenborn, he made his guitars in 4 different styles. Styles 1, 2, 3, and 4. Style 1 was the plainest and the least expensive, and style 4 was the fanciest and the most expensive. This one here is a style 3, the second most fanciest. Now, the reason it's a style 1, 2, 3, or 4 is this stuff. You see this here? This binding? It's going dark. The wood goes dark light, right? That's rope marquetry. It's called marquetry. It comes from, get this rope marquetry was borrowed by the Hawaiians from 17th century European furniture makers. So in the 17th century in Europe, furniture makers always would put this rope binding on their furniture as a decorative feature. The Hawaiians loved it, and they put it on most of their instruments in the 1910s and 20s and even the 30s. So there are, what makes this a style 3, you have the rope binding around the sound hole, around the body, around the fretboard, but nowhere else. It's not around the headstock. This is, by the way, nobody knows this unless they play the guitar. This section of the guitar, from my finger up, this section with the tuners on it, it's called the headstock. That's the name of any guitars, this part of any guitar, it's the headstock. And style 4 would have rope binding around the headstock, and it would have the rope binding on the back as well. The style 3 has no rope binding on the back. But what makes this instrument is literally the only one of its kind to exist on the planet Earth. And here's why. This guy, Herman Weissenborn, there was a Hawaiian steel guitar teacher in Los Angeles named Charles S. Delano, and he had tons and tons of students, because people don't know this anymore, nobody can remember anything about this, but in the 1910s, in the early 1900s, up until World War II actually, a Hawaiian music craze swept America. Americans all over the country were bonkers for Hawaiian music. Hawaii Calls was like the most popular radio show at that time. World War II put an end to the Hawaiian music craze for some reason. People got distracted with the war and it went away. There was one point in time, Hawaiian records were outselling Benny Goodman records. I mean, that's how popular it was. But nobody knows anything about this today, in today's day and age. I know it because I study it, and this is my thing, you know? But the deal is, Charles Delano decided, hey, I'd like to have my own brand of Hawaiian guitars so I can make more money by selling them to my students. He commissioned Herman Weissenborn to make Konas for him. He put his own label, it said Kona Hawaiian Guitar, trademark registered, and Weissenborn, they were Weissenborn instruments, but nobody associated his name with them because they had Charles Delano's Kona name on them. So, and I almost brought one of my Konas tonight because I love the Konas. The Konas sound really great, but I didn't. I brought this one instead. And so anyway, here's the point. Besides him making these Konas for Charles Delano, Weissenborn also made his Hawaiian guitars for a few other companies. One of them might have been Lowry. I can't quite remember. Lowry, the organ people. He might have done it from them. But there was one other company, and they called it a Maui Hawaiian steel guitar. And the Maui label is yellow with dark blue printing, I guess, or is it black, dark blue, whatever. But over the years of me collecting Weissenborns, and I've been deeply into these for over 30 years now, and I have a friend, a good friend who lives in Washington State. He is even more of an authority on these things than me, because he actually wrote a book on Weissenborn back in the 1980s. So he and I, we've seen a few, 3, 4, maybe 5 style ones with a Maui label, the yellow Maui label, and we've seen maybe 1 or 2 style 2 Maui labels. We have never, either one of us, in all our years of researching Weissenborn guitars, neither one of us has ever seen a style 3 or a style 4 Maui. They don't exist. This style 3 Maui does exist. It's the one and only on the planet. And I am very lucky, lucky, lucky to own it. So, this show, I do this series of cultural educational shows. One show I do is all the shakuhachi flute. Another is American roots music. When a musician says roots music, we are talking about old time from the 1910s, 20s, 30s, blues, gospel, folk, bluegrass, and folk music. Those 5 styles gave birth to everything from Sinatra to Taylor Swift. All of our popular music traces its roots back to those 5 styles of music. And then I do a show of all traditional Hawaiian music. So this one will be from my American Roots show, an old Woody Guthrie song. You guys remember Woody Guthrie, right? It's called Vigilante Man. Have you seen that vigilante man? Have you seen that vigilante man? Have you seen that vigilante man? I've been hearing his name all over the land. Rainy night down in the engine house, sleeping just as still as a mouse. Man came along and chased us out in the rain. Was that a vigilante man? Preacher Casey was just a working man, and he said, unite all you working men. Killed him in the river some strange men. Was that a vigilante man? Tell me, why does a vigilante man? Tell me, why does a vigilante man carry that sawed-off shotgun in his hand? Would he shoot his brother and sister down? the 30s, like all these people in America, they had a lot of migrants because of the Dust Bowl or whatever, and they were trying, like an engine, rainy night engine house, they're sleeping in an engine house and some guy comes and kicks them out because he's a vigilante. Apparently that was like an epidemic of people taking the law into their own hands back in like the 30s. And it was such a big deal, Woody Guthrie wrote a song about it, you know? Oh, I forgot to mention one of the most critical things of all, I can't believe I spaced out on telling you this. When this guitar was made, and like I said, between 1921 and 1923, there was no such thing as an electric guitar. The first electric guitar ever invented was invented in 1931, and get this, it was not a regular guitar, it was a Hawaiian steel guitar like this. It was made by the Rickenbacker Company, and it was called a fry pan. It was a long neck with a perfectly circular body, and it was called a fry pan because it looked like a long-handled frying pan. So here's what. There were no electric guitars in the 20s. Weissenborn wanted to make his instruments louder so they could compete with the other instruments in the band. So the neck is hollow. That is bizarre because there is no stringed instrument anywhere on the planet with a hollow neck other than these Weissenborns. Oh, there was a Swedish immigrant, Chris Knutson, who made these Hawaiian guitars similar. And some other companies did too, and he used the hollow neck as well. And there's another company, they're called Hilo. I have 4 Hilo Hawaiian guitars at home from the 20s, and they have hollow necks as well. But other than these Hawaiian guitars, every stringed instrument on the planet, a guitar, a violin, a cello, doesn't matter, a bass guitar, they all have solid wooden necks. But the idea was, instead of just the body being your resonance chamber, like a regular acoustic guitar with a solid neck, the entire instrument is now a resonance chamber, giving it a little more volume. Now, it didn't make it that much louder. Oh, by the way, this guitar, these Weissenborn made not every single one of his Hawaiian guitars, but nearly every single one. He made them out of Hawaiian koa wood. K-O-A koa. The koa tree grows nowhere in the world except the Hawaiian Islands. It's now endangered. You can no longer cut it down because over the years, the Hawaiians cut down so many koa trees to make tourist tchotchkes like little hula girls and salad bowls and salad spoons and blah, 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 and then instruments as well. So the konas were being endangered, so now they're protected and they can't be cut down. Anyway, so this instrument here is another different kind of steel guitar. And see, people, if they saw this, and they said, oh, it's called a steel guitar because it's made of steel, you'd be forgiven for thinking that with this guitar because it looks like it's made of steel. However, this guitar is not made of steel. It's made out of something called German silver. Has anyone ever heard of German silver? Okay, it's an alloy. An alloy means a mix of metals. You mix 2, 3, 4, 5 metals together, that constitutes an alloy. German silver is brass, bronze, zinc, nickel, and you know, I think there's a 5th metal in there that I never seem to be able to recall. It's like one of those things. I just have this mental block on it. I think there's a 5th metal, but those 4, zinc, brass, bronze, nickel, are all in it. In the 20s and the 30s, I think it was, is when they kind of came up with this German silver. People were trying to scam people, trying to pawn it off as real silver. It was worth nothing, but they were trying to get the value of silver for it. Like if an ounce of silver was $50, they would sell an ounce for $50 and scam people, right? But this guy, all right, there were 3 brothers who were immigrants. They emigrated from Czechoslovakia to America, and they were the Dopiera brothers. Their name was Dopiera. And John Dopiera was the main genius and inventor of the 5 of them. He had all the great ideas. And he thought that German silver was one of the best things to make his guitars out of. So he made most of his guitars out of German silver. I have another one called a tricone, and that's at home, and that's also, it's even shinier than this, and it's made out of German silver as well. And it was made by his first company, the National Company. But see, here's what. The National Company formed in 1927. It was the 5 Dopiera brothers, a guy named George Beecham, and a German immigrant named Adolf Rickenbacker. Now, after only 2 years of the National Company putting out guitars and being in business, in 1929, they broke up, and they went their separate ways. Adolf Rickenbacker went on to found Rickenbacker Guitars. Rickenbacker guitars are one of the most famous, most played guitars in the history of the guitar. Like the Beatles, the Byrds, Tom Petty played Rickenbacker guitars. I mean, countless famous artists played Rickenbacker guitars. And the 5 Dopiera brothers formed a new company of their own, and they called it the Dobro Company. Now, in Czechoslovakian, the word dobre means good, so dobro was almost the word for good, not quite, but close. There were 5 letters in the word dobro, there were 5 brothers, and dobro is an anagram for Dopiera, Bro, brothers. Dopiera brothers, Dobro. Now, Dobro is a brand name, but it has become synonymous with this guitar, just like you'll buy a Stop and Shop brand Kleenex, tissues, but you will call them a Kleenex, right? Because Kleenex is synonymous with tissues, and like, you know, Xeroxing is synonymous with copying. So Dobro is synonymous with this instrument. It's really, what this guitar really is, besides it being a steel guitar or a Hawaiian guitar, it's also, we call it a resonator or resophonic guitar. The reason we call it resonator or resophonic is underneath this circular hubcap looking thing is a thin aluminum speaker cone. It looks and functions just like a stereo on your speaker. It vibrates and makes the sound louder. It projects it out. And Dopiera did this to compete with Weissenborn's hollow necks. And once the tricone came up, you see, the National Company, the first model they came up with, they didn't have the dobro with one big cone, they had the tricone which had 3 smaller cones in it. Once the tricone came out, nobody was buying the Weissenborns because they wanted a tricone because it was much louder. Then in 1931, when they invented the electric guitar, nobody wanted the tricones because everybody wanted the electric guitar. You know, and that's how it went. Business competition, you know. So, this, by the way, this dobro is very cool because this is from the very first year the company existed, 1929. This was made in 1929. And it's got some really cool, like, little etching on the back. I don't know how well you can see it there, but, you know, it's kind of dark in here, you know, but, yeah. Some of the tricones had all kinds of major pictures. They had whole scenes of people surfing and this and that, and they would be etched in, you know, and sometimes they painted them on. I wouldn't like that. I wouldn't want a picture painted on my guitar. That's just weird, in my opinion. Anyway, so this is a Hawaiian song. Since it's a Hawaiian guitar, I gotta play a Hawaiian song. This is a Hawaiian song that came out, or was written in the 1890s. It was written by a Hawaiian woman. Her name was Alice Everett, and that's not a Hawaiian name, but she was Hawaiian. And she wrote it as a love song to her new husband when they were getting married. And by the way, when I got married, I wrote a song for my wife on this instrument, which I'll tell you about in a minute, and I played it for her and in front of all our guests at our wedding, and it was this beautiful, gorgeous, sweet song. And here's the thing. We've been married for 16 years. In 16 years since our wedding day, she has never once said, "Hey Chris, play me my song." She just like doesn't care. It's incredible. I just can't get over it. I mean, if somebody wrote me a song, I'd want to hear it all the time. I'd be flattered and touched, you know, but whatever. Anyway, so, all right, hold on. Oh my God. I am blanking out on how to play the song. Yeah, there it is. Okay, I got it. This song, it's called Ualike no Alike, and in English, and this is weird, I don't know how this works, but for some reason, apparently it has 2 different translations. It could either mean my heart's choice or sweet constancy. I don't know how that works, but apparently that's the case. That's what I read when I learned the song. It's short, that's all there is to it. All right. But that's a sweet tune. I really like that tune a lot. All right, so the only instrument that I haven't played yet is this one. This instrument, and I don't have as much knowledge on this instrument like I do on the shakuhachi and the steel guitars. But it's one of my favorite instruments to play, and in my opinion, this instrument, it's one of the most beautiful sounding instruments in the whole world. I am so in love with this instrument. It's called a tiple. In Spanish, it's called a tiple. Why Spanish? Because it is from the country of Colombia, where they speak Spanish. And by the way, you guys, this show is something very different. I am literally, when last I looked online and looked it up, we have 7.8 billion people living on planet Earth at this time, right? Of 7.8 billion people, I am the only person that can play the shakuhachi, the steel guitar, and the Colombian tiple. I promise you that. There is not anybody anywhere but me that can do that. And then when you throw in me playing the steel drum and singing and everything else I play, the guitar and everything else, I literally play 20 instruments. I am not kidding. I can play 20 different instruments, and I'm great on all of them. I'm not like bad on one and good on another. No, I play them all at a high level. I play the Russian balalaika, I play the Turkish saz, the Turkish shali tambur, the Arabic oud, I play the Irish bouzouki, the Portuguese guitar. I'm into instruments from around the world. And so yeah, this is the tiple. And this tiple, by the way, it's over 100 years old. It was made in 1924, so it's 101 years old. And it was made by the Martin Guitar Company. Has anyone ever heard of Martin Guitars? Yes. They're one of the most famous guitar companies of all time. They started out in New York City, right here in New York, in 1861 or something like that. And then sometime, like 10 years into his company, he moved his operation to Nazareth, Pennsylvania. And the funniest thing is, my wife is from Pennsylvania, Exton, a little bit out of Philly. And, you know, we always go back to visit, you know, to see my mother-in-law and my sister-in-law and all that, and hang with the family. And, you know, 20 years we're together, we're going to Pennsylvania all the time, a couple times a year. I've been trying to go out to the Martin factory to do a tour, and it's never once happened in 20 years. I've never gotten to the Martin factory. One thing is, whenever we're there at Christmas, they're closed for the week of Christmas, so we can't go if we're there visiting for Christmas, so whatever. Anyway, it has 10 steel strings, and it just has this amazing sound. And I had a Colombian friend from Colombia, and he played the tiple, and he was teaching me a few things, Colombian style, but I forgot it all because it was so many years ago. It was like 30 years ago. So I play the tiple in my own way, and I would probably say, I'm about confident to say, I am the most unique tiple player on the planet. Because here's what. I don't tune the tiple the way a tiple is tuned. The tiple, I don't even know. Get this. I've been playing this instrument for like 35 or 36 years or something like that. I don't even know what the standard tuning is because I tune my tipples to an open A major chord. That is an A chord. See, here's the thing. Hawaiian steel guitars, you always tune them to an open chord. That's called open tuning. There's a word for it in guitar land. Open tuning. You could play a guitar in open tuning. I do that all the time too. But see this guitar here, when I just strum the strings without touching them in any way, that is a D major chord. This one here, that is a G major chord. And this one is an A major. And it allows me, one time my wife was listening to me play, you know, she was hanging out watching me and she goes, "Hey, you sound like you're two people. How are you doing that?" I have a little trick with this where I let the open strings ring in the key and they're drones and I play a melody and the drones are accompanying my melody. And I don't think there's any tiple player anywhere in the world that does this in open tuning. I just don't know of it. I've never heard of it. Anyway, this is a song. With the tiple, the only music that I ever have played in my entire 36 years of playing the tiple, I have only played my own original compositions. So this is going to be a song that I wrote myself. I wrote this song, God, over 30 years ago. I was like in my early 20s when I wrote this tune. But it's a good tune, and it's called Bolivian Sundance. is like big and fat, and I love it. Like I said, I just love that instrument. It's one of my very favorites, you know? All right, I guess I'm going to go back to the flute. I guess we'll go around. Oh, boy, so you know what's funny? Library shows are always an hour, but the show is advertised for an hour and 15, and I'm like, oh, I've got such a long ride home, I can't do that. But I didn't get to play nearly as much as I used to, so I'm going to have to go 15 minutes overtime. That's okay, right? You guys are expecting it to be end at 8:15, right? Yeah, because here's what. Because I told you before how my classical training on the shakuhachi is in the Kinko school, so I want to play a Kinko piece because that's my main school. So here's what. This is one of my very favorite pieces. In fact, it's like the first piece. It's piece number 1, and it's supposed to be like the piece that all other pieces were based on. It's called Shin Kyo-rei, and when I play it meditatively, it's like a 18, maybe even a 20-minute long piece. I'm not going to play a 20-minute piece for an audience. I don't do that. It's too long, you know? So what I'm going to do is, and I have this piece memorized. You saw I had Oshusashi memorized that I played earlier. I play that every day. Of course I have it memorized. But this piece I have memorized. So what I'm going to do is, I'm going to make it like a 5 or a 6-minute piece. I'm going to cut it way down. I'm just going to skip a bunch of sections. And some sections repeat, you know, like there's this one part in the beginning where this whole phrase of a bunch of the same phrases repeat twice in a row. I don't need to repeat them. I'll skip it. So here we go. Kinko Ryu Shakuhachi music, Shin Kyo-rei. I messed up. But, you know, when I play my guitar and sing, like when I sing as a vocalist, I never ever make a vocal mistake. Well, the only vocal mistake, once in a while I forget a lyric, you know, that happens. But I never ever sing a note off key with my voice, and I make very, very few mistakes on my guitar when I'm playing my electric guitar. But with the shakuhachi, it's such a difficult and unruly instrument. No matter how good you are, you still will make some mistakes when you play it. It's like, it's almost impossible to not make a mistake if you play for any long period of time. Like even the greatest masters will mess up. My favorite story to tell, we had a World Shakuhachi Festival in Boulder, Colorado in 1997, and I was in a master class with Yamaguchi Goro. He was my teacher's teacher. He was the greatest shakuhachi player of our time. He was designated by the Japanese Cultural Ministry. He was designated the National Living Treasure for shakuhachi. That's how good he was. He was going to demonstrate a phrase on the shakuhachi for us. He blew into his flute and no sound came out at all. The greatest master. So that's how unruly and difficult this instrument is. Even the greatest master will mess up. Okay, so here we go again. Shin Kyo-rei. play a blues song, and that is a must. I have to play a blues song. I mean, blues gave birth to, blues gave birth to rock and roll. If we didn't have blues first, we would have not had Elvis, the Stones, the Beatles, or any of that music. There was a very great bluesman named Mississippi Fred McDowell. He lived into the 70s. I think he might have died in the 70s. But this is one of his great songs. It's called "You Gotta Move." You got to move. You got to move. You got to move, child. You got to move. But when the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. You may be high, you may be low, you may be rich, child, you may be poor. But when the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. See that woman who walks the street. You see that police upon his beat. But when the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. You got to move. You got to move. You got to move, child. You got to move. But when the Lord gets ready, you gotta move. Thank you. I don't think I'm going to get to do a bluegrass song tonight, but maybe I'll even go a little over 15 minutes. Maybe I'll go to 8:20 or something. Because I thought I'd slip in one more cool folk song, and then I was going to end the show with a gospel tune, but before I do that, I just want to tell people, when I play a gospel song, I am not preaching the gospel to anybody, because your religion is your business, it is not my business, and I would never try to convert somebody. Because plus, anybody with half a brain knows you never can convert somebody away from their religion. When people have a religion, they stick with it for life, usually, am I right? Most of the time, you know. But plus, I'm not a religious person at all. I've never been to church once in my life. It's just not been my thing. I'm spiritual, I'm not religious. Anyway, this is an old folk song from the 1800s, and it's called Long Black Veil. 10 years ago, on a cold, dark night, there was someone killed beneath the town judge said, son, what's your alibi? If you were somewhere else, then you won't have to die. Well, I spoke not a word, though it meant my life. I had been in the arms of my best friend's wife. She walks these hills in a long black veil. She visits my grave when the night winds wail. Nobody knows, no, nobody sees, nobody knows but me. The scaffold was high and eternity near. She stood in the crowd and she shed not a tear. But sometimes at night, when the cold wind moans in a long black veil, she cries over my bones. She walks these hills in a long black veil. She visits my grave when the night winds wail. Nobody knows, no, nobody sees, nobody knows but me. All right, thank you. All right, and so lastly, like I said, an old gospel. This gospel song is over 100 years old. And the funny thing is, I just explained, I'm not religious, I never went to church or whatever, but I happen to love gospel music. I mean, I don't maybe want to hear the Jesus message that they're singing about, but I love the vocal melodies and I like the music. I think gospel music is awesome. Yeah, so this is called Jesus on the Mainland. And here's the funny thing. It's a gospel song. I'm playing it on a Hawaiian guitar, and I'm playing it in a style of music known as country blues. See, back in the 20s and whatever, musicians, most musicians are never going to be bigots or prejudiced against other people because of the color of their skin. You know, musicians are never like that. Musicians are accepting of everybody on the planet. That's how we think. And all musicians hate war and violence. You know, that's just musicians, right? So back then, there was a lot of racial strife in our country in the 20s and the 30s, but the musicians didn't have any part of that. The musicians accepted each other. So the white country musicians and the black blues musicians, they all made friends and they played music together and they swapped ideas. And then all of a sudden, you had this new kind of music, country blues. It was a mix of white country and black blues, and it was a brand new style. So that's how I'm going to play the song in the country blues style. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Well, you call him up, tell him what you want. The line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. The line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. The line ain't never busy. Tell him what you want. Then you call him up, tell him what you want. Well, if you wanted his kingdom, tell him what you want. Now, if you wanted his kingdom, tell him what you want. Said if you wanted his kingdom, tell him what you want. Said you call him up, tell him what you want. Now, if you're sick and you want to get well, man, tell him what you want. said, tell him what you want. You gotta call him up and tell him what you want. Now Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. Jesus is on that main line. Tell him what you want. You gotta call him up. Tell him what you want. Said you call him up. Tell him what you want. Well, you call him up, man. Tell him what you want. I said you call him up and tell him what you want. All right. Thank you very much. Everybody. All right. All right, so, oh boy, I don't know. Well, you know what? It's 8:18, whatever. I'll do one more tune on the tipple and then I'll call it a night. What do you think? You guys want to hear one more tune on the tipple? Is that okay? Yeah? All right. This is a song I wrote fairly recently. Like a lot of my tipple songs I wrote 30-something years ago. This one I wrote recently. And I don't have a title for it yet. You know, it's always so difficult to think up a title for an instrumental song because there's no lyrics, you know what I mean? But title's not important, whatever. Here we go. Whatever the name of it is. incredibly eclectic and unusual show.